We're going to kick this summit off with a man who's an award-winning, best-selling author. One of his books actually gave name to our event here today. He's also one of the world's most highly rated speakers on the topic of change, digital transformation, mindset, innovation, strategy, and the future. With a wealth of experience and a unique way of looking at the world, he dazzles his audience. He's currently Chief Marketing Officer at Minima, the next generation of blockchain technology, but also works as an advisor for companies such as Google, Apple, IKEA, Sony, and Lego, the small companies. He's a British refugee of love, and we now reach him from the other side of the globe, from the land of kangaroos and walkabouts. We're very pleased to present to you Jonathan MacDonald.
Thank you so much, and hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Throughout my entire career, which has spanned almost 30 years, I've come up with some conclusions, basically some observations of the way success seems to work. And I'd say that really in summary, that success is about how much we change and failure is about how much we don't. And there's an ancient proverb that says that when the winds of change are blowing, some build a wall and others build a windmill. And if you think about that, the resistance that we have to change, the forces or the winds of change, is something that's missing the opportunity. The opportunity surely is to be powered by it, like a windmill, right? And it's strange that we tend to try and resist the only thing we can predict. And today is the slowest pace of change we'll ever experience. Today. The change in the next 5 years will feel like the change in the last 15. The change in the next 10 years will feel like the change in the last 50. And it's strange how we think about change and how we can adjust our mindsets. And sometimes it's to do with how we actually can be more creative in how we think. And how we think is very important. I'll give you an example. You know, in a workshop with a Pacific Powerline company in America, there was this conversation as to how we can get rid of the snow that's on the power lines that's actually stopping the power supply. And so there was a lot of joking about, well, you know, why don't we try and shake them in a different way? And it turns out that actually that doesn't really work. And someone said, well, we can climb up them and try and knock the snow off. And someone said, well, that's super dangerous. And also if you fall, then there's these grizzly bears that are going to eat you. So, you know, you might make the snow come off, but you're not going to get rid of the bear that's chasing you. And someone really smart said, well, I know, why don't we put honey pots on the top of the power lines? And then the bears will be attracted to climb up them. And as they're climbing up them, they'll shake them and then the snow will come off. And everyone laughed. And then someone else said, I know how we're going to get the honey pots up there. We're going to fly the honey pots up there by helicopter. And then we can land them on the top of the power lines. And then someone said, little lady in the corner of the room said, when I was in Vietnam as a nurse, when a helicopter would land, the updraft of the dust was so strong that you couldn't even see anything. And then suddenly there's no laughter in the room. There's no laughter anymore. And to this day, how snow gets beaten off power lines is by flying helicopters above them. And the moral of the story is that you wouldn't have got to the helicopters flying there if you hadn't started with the bears and the honeypot and the jokes and sometimes the creative thinking that we have around how we deal with stuff that's happening might come from thinking of things in unusual ways. So maybe being powered by change is something to do with that. But our model of thinking is different for each individual. We have biases and heuristics, which are methods of how we think. Some people are very influenced by their surroundings, and we have biases that kind of enable us to be coerced, to be persuaded without us realizing. Other people may be really certain about something. They may suffer from biases that are absolutely rigid, that anything can happen. And at the end of the day, they'll just build that wall rather than build that windmill. Others will weigh up the chances of something and think, well, is this likely to happen or less likely to happen? And of course, the problem with that is what we tend to do is we weigh up chances based on the past rather than what the future could hold. Thinking, of course, that the future is a separate entity to the present, which it isn't. You see, the irony is that there is nothing other than just lots and lots of present moments. So you are literally building the future now. And now you're building the future now, and so forth. And of course, there are other people who live inside self-talk. And ultimately, our body doesn't know the difference between a thought and an actual experience. So if you're thinking of an experience or experiencing something, your body is actually reorganizing itself around that genetically. And so all of these different patterns of how we think relate to how we can be powered by change. Literally, how we think controls our outcome. If we watch our thoughts becoming words and actions and habits and character, that's then what determines our destiny. I remember Hire Washing Machines sent someone down to Asia to find out how their washing machines were being used, only to find that people weren't using clothes in the washing machines. They were putting vegetables in the washing machines. And they're like, why would people be putting vegetables in the washing machines? It turned out that in a lot of the Asian regions, they would use the washing machines for vegetables without realizing they were meant to be for clothes. So what Hire did was they actually created even better vegetable washing machines. But that flexibility of thought, that ability to not try and move forward by only looking in the rearview mirror, enabled them to be powered by change. When Kodak was going out of business, and everyone uses that case study, no one really uses the Fujifilm case study, which is that happened at the same time. What we were looking at with Fujifilm was what business we were really in this time of change, of digital photography. And it turned out that Fujifilm isn't in the business of printers or photo paper or cameras. Fujifilm is in the business, literally, of writing with light, or how light damages material. Photo light, graphy writing, which is to damage material. So if you look at that from one perspective, really moving forward, why couldn't we create a strategy that is all about how light damages material? And that's why Fujifilm created Astalift, the anti-wrinkle skincare cream brand. Why not? Why would they not? But ultimately, the largest source of light is the sun, and the largest source of material is skin. Therefore, and they can branch in any direction. This elevated purpose that they have in the face of persistent, perpetual change, of which today is the slowest pace of change we'll ever experience, requires us to elevate our thinking upward so we can innovate outward. Our ability to elevate is directly proportional to our ability to innovate. Of course, there's some barriers. There are some barriers in everything that we do. And one of those barriers is how our organizations are actually constructed. I remember showing this slide once at a conference, and someone came up to me afterwards from a mobile network and said, I'm actually known as the VP of No. And I said, why is that? And he said, because I say no to any good idea. And I was like, okay, sell all shares in that particular mobile network. And this is something that's really common in terms of the barriers that we face. Sometimes the way we're structured as an organization doesn't suit us to be able to build a windmill. Sometimes we have a huge amount of fear of the unknown, and that could well be due to the fact that there is a lack of understanding. With rational fear, we require rational understanding to help that reduce. Other times we have a comfort zone which we are stuck within because we have biases in our heads, which is certain that the comfort zone is the best place for magic to happen, which it isn't, of course. Magic doesn't happen in comfort zones. In fact, if you want anything spectacular to happen, then it's not going to come from that zone. I remember with IKEA, I've been helping for many, many, many years before Jesper Broden became the chief exec of Inca. And what I've helped IKEA with over the years, and Jesper wrote the foreword to Powered by Change, by the way, my second to last book, the Sunday Times bestseller book, Powered by Change. As the work with him progressed, what we were really doing was moving a very old world business into the present, but it did stretch us out of the comfort zone. And we had to enable the entire senior teams to realize that the comfort zone wasn't going to be where the future of IKEA would come from. What I think we can do for the rest of these sessions, of which the lineup is brilliant, and I can't wait to hear what's going to happen today. We can always be thinking of not what the facts are, what we know to be sure. Well, how many 3D printers have been shipped? How many robots are there? How much has AI? That's fine. That's statistics. That's fact. That's top right-hand side. But to get there, what we should be doing as well is thinking differently in terms of how we could speculate. Because speculating, guessing, testing and learning and improving is how we can experiment more and predict more and then arrive at the facts. So for those of you who are waiting to see some unarguable evidence of, will show me, prove to me that this is the slowest pace of change we'll ever experience. Prove that we will be printing food out in the next 3 to 5 years. Prove to me that actually, in terms of robotics, there is a huge opportunity, but also maybe humanness, human artisanness, the spirit of real humans will be more premium in the future. Prove that. Well, we can't prove that because there's no such thing as the future. There's just lots and lots of nows. What we need to be doing in the nows is speculating so we can experiment and then predict and move forward. We almost need to build a speedboat to go alongside our oil tanker that might be moving slightly slower so we can explore the horizon and come back and report to the speedboat. In my platform, poweredbychange.com, which is a business acceleration tool, all of these theories and models have been the reason why some of the companies from Lego to IKEA to Unilever to Google and Apple and so forth have grown so fast is by using the methodologies which boil down to one thing, and that is how we think about change and how we can predict the future based on our nowness. Jim Carrey, the actor, wrote a check to himself for $10 million in 1989, and he post-dated it to the same date, November 1st of 1994. 5 years in the future. He was penniless on the top of Hollywood Hills in a beaten-up Toyota, and he wrote this check to himself, to me, by me, for acting services rendered. And do you know what's weird? Is that on November the 1st, 1994, he found out that he had got the role in Dumb and Dumber, the film. And guess what the salary was? $10 million. I'm not saying that this is some kind of weird magic stuff here, but something happens when we enable ourselves to have a very clear vision of testing and learning and improving and building a windmill that can use the forces of change as a power mechanism, as a fuel mechanism to create the destiny that we want due to our thoughts. And that's why I was so eager to be involved in today. And I'm over the moon that this event is happening. And the lineup is one of the best lineups in my 30-year career I've ever experienced. And I'm truly honored to be involved in kicking this all off. Thank you so much. And good luck in your journey of being powered by change.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. You're certainly part of that fantastic lineup of ours. Let's stick a little bit with what you just told us. I'm wondering how you yourself deal with change. I mean, for example, you moved from England to Australia. That's a pretty big change as well. How do you, your everyday mood into change?
Well, I travel around the world, apart from with COVID, I travel around the world 20,000 miles a year anyway. So I'm a fan of transience. I'm a fan of the uncertain, but I'm still human. So what I've done is I've worked very closely looked very closely at my biases and the biases that I suffer from. And sometimes what makes me feel uncomfortable when things are changing, but why I feel uncomfortable when things are changing. And for me, understanding how I feel uncomfortable around some change, like for instance, if a plan has been made and a plan changes, why that makes me feel uncomfortable. Whereas I really like it when new ideas are coming up with and a company pivots. I've been involved in 10 startups and helped 40% of the Fortune 500 companies. So being at the early stages of Amazon and eBay and PayPal and Apple and so forth, these type of experiences always were changeable, and I loved it. But then if I book a holiday with my wife and then suddenly it's cancelled because of COVID, I find that an absolute disaster.
Okay.
But in fact, to be honest, I should just embrace it like everything else.
But it's nice to hear that you're human as well as the rest of us. So I'm thinking, what's the one thing that we should stop doing to make our businesses more proactive to change?
The one thing I think we should do is decide whether we're building a wall and resisting change or building a windmill and being powered by it. And I know it sounds simple, but look at everything you think and do, because it comes from your thoughts, what you then do, and think which parts of my thinking is resisting the only thing on earth we know to be true, which is that change happens. So am I actually resisting the only truth that we have? That's the one thing I'd leave you with.
Just one more thing before we hang up on this, because I know that you flip a coin. Is it every second year? You pick two things every year, two things that you need to learn, and then you flip a coin, and the side that it lands on, you have to do it. So what was it you did the last time?
Well, if anyone wants to go to Spotify and Google, look in Spotify for my name, Jonathan MacDonald, and The Rise of Advanced Thought, you can listen to my latest book free on Spotify, and you'll hear about the coin flips. Every year there is one. I've ran marathons, learned languages, forgiven all the people that abused me when I was younger, and I wrote a Sunday Times bestseller based on a coin flip. This year was doing the splits, and
So how's that going?
Relatively. It's fine. I have another 2 months left, and I'm probably 3 inches off the floor. So I was about 16 inches off the floor to begin with. So I give myself 2 years to complete each flip. But this is forcing me to be okay with uncertainty, and I pick two things that I can't do, and then I execute all of them. And so yes, everyone should do that more.
Yeah, let's take that with us. It's been a true pleasure having you, Jonathan MacDonald. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. See you soon, guys.